Hi there. My name is Alana, and I'm so excited to be with you today. I'm a good friend of Nancy's, and I've been teaching for about 4 years now. Yin is one of those that I teach, and I love working with that feminine yin energy, so I'm really excited to be here. But it's been a while since I've been in front of the camera, so if I'm a little nervous, that's why. But I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to also use the bolster. So if you don't have a bolster, you could use a couch cushion. You could use two kind of fluffier pillows. If you have a block, you could kind of support it underneath it to give it that good firmness that you have in a bolster. And then we actually will be using a strap today, but just for one pose. So go ahead and find a strap-like thing. It could be a robe, robe tie, could be anything that just resembles that strap. But I guess without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to get started in a more restorative pose today, and we'll be using that bolster pretty much throughout the entire class. So I'm going to first take my strap and I'm going to come to a seat. And I'm going to come into butterfly. So I'm going to bring the soles of the feet to touch, knees apart. And you're going to take that strap, and luckily mine already had a really nice loop, but you're going to find a loop about yay big so that you can get it over your body. And once you have that, just so we can make sure that we can just go right into that pose, I'm going to get this all set up behind me. I'm going to have my bolster, and you can take this a few different ways. We're going into a reclined butterfly pose. I like to have a little bit of support behind that bolster, so I'm going to take it right at the head of it, letting the top of the bolster fall onto it. So now that that's all set up and then we have that strap over us, you're going to take that strap and you're going to put it over the pinky edge of your feet. So I have plenty of room right now, but I'm going to want to make it a little bit tighter so that the strap is kind of pulling my feet in. So I have it on my lower back and then the pinky edges of my feet. So I'm going to tighten it. If you are using that robe or you're using something that might not have that little plastic piece on it, you can just tie it behind your back. So that is also an option. Okay, so once I have it tied as comfortable as you want it to be, it can be pulling those heels in. Again, it's on the lower back, so you might feel a little pull there. Just make sure you're comfortable. Once you have it situated, we're just reclining. So start to come down. And since this is our first pose, our starting pose, we'll stay here just a little bit longer. So you can take your hands and rest them to your sides. If you're comfortable closing your eyes down, you might do that. Starting to close your eyes down to remove that distraction so we can move forward with intention. Scanning the body for a moment, maybe starting at the crown of the head, moving downward into the eyebrows, relaxing the temples and the cheeks, the jaw. Letting the shoulders just completely draw down and away from the ears. Relaxing the back of your neck. And as you move towards the belly, your awareness, maybe start to feel that belly rise and fall as you breathe in and breathe out. Breathing in. Breathing out. Finding your own rhythm of your breath as it moves steadily. Letting it be a little bit longer than your usual breath. Maybe your exhales are a little bit slower than your inhales. Moving the awareness into the hips, softening the lower back. Softening the knees, even the soles of the feet, feel them relax into one another. And as we're staying here, breathing into the belly, I'll start class off with a little wise old tale or a story. And it goes, there were two traveling monks, and they reached a river where they met a young and very attractive woman. She was in despair. She had to cross the river, but was afraid to do so. The current was too strong, and she was afraid of drowning. So without hesitation, the older monk picked her up onto his shoulders and carried her across the river. Arriving safely on the other bank, he sat her down and bowed. She expressed her gratitude and departed, and the monks continued their journey in silence. Unable to hold his silence any longer, the younger monk spoke with reproach. Master, of all people, you should have known that our spiritual teaching forbids us contact with women, but you have picked up that one and carried her on your shoulders. How can that be? And he said, Brother, replied the master, I set her down on the other side of the river hours ago, but you are still carrying her. And when I first read that story, I thought about all the things that we kind of hibernate with through the winter when it can be dark and cold, and we sit with all those things that are on our mind and our hearts. But now, as the snow starts to melt and some of those layers are shed, just thinking about what all that we carry in our day to day, the guilt, the kind of judgment or expectation that we have on ourselves, and how can we start to shed some of those things now as the seasons change. What are you carrying just physically in the body right now? Do you have that weight of the world in your shoulders? Can you soften them even a little bit more into that support underneath you? Taking 3 deep breaths here, maybe using your exhale to just let go of some of those things you were carrying. And we'll take one more breath here. Maybe it's a deep inhale through the nose. And the exhale out the mouth. Remember that time is on our side today and you don't have to feel rushed. So taking your time as you just come up to a seat, keeping the strap on, you can curl the chin to the chest, nice and slow, hands under the shoulders as you press yourself up. And you'll take a moment here. This is going to be a little fun transition. You're going to roll to either side, keeping the strap on. So we're actually going to just roll onto our belly, getting the inner knees on the ground, and you can use that bolster underneath the chest. So I'm kind of spinning on the feet here, walking myself now to the opposite side of that bolster. It's going to feel a little funky at first. You're coming into kind of like an open leg frog position. And I know this is a little awkward right now, so we'll do our best to get as comfortable as possible. So as you come down, you can rest your belly onto that bolster, keeping the strap on you, kind of pulling the knees apart. I might even take that block under my forehead just to get really comfortable here. Take your time. Use these first this first minute or so to get any little adjustment out of the way, whether you need to loosen the strap or you just need to take the strap off completely. It's totally fine. So you get comfortable. And if you haven't already, maybe start to close the eyes down again. Sometimes when we enter the poses, it, takes a second just to get readjusted mentally and physically. If your head is on the bolster and you feel comfortable turning your ear down, you can take your ear down. But if you wanted to use that block under the forehead, that is an option. Using your exhale to let go of some of that heaviness in the body. Letting your shoulders relax down, knowing that you have that bolster underneath you that you can really give into. Using your breath to bring in that lightness that you're looking for, and then using your exhale again to let go of that heaviness. And if your cheek is down, you might take it to the other side, just evening out. You do have the option to always get as comfortable as you'd like, and maybe that means you want to add a little bit more into the pose. You could take that bolster out from underneath you. It does intensify it a little bit more, getting into the inner thigh. You might try to get your chest or your belly down. This is a little bit different than your typical frog. You have the soles of the feet still together. Just about another minute or so. Let's take one more deep breath. And however you'd like to kind of shimmy out of the pose, you can. I'm going to kind of sneak one foot out. Oof. And straighten that leg out. And then you can always kind of use your hand to get that other strap. You might even come onto the belly for a moment, just pausing. And we'll slowly take those hands underneath the shoulders as you slowly make your way back to child's pose. And you might use that bolster if you want. Bringing the knees together, taking that bolster right in front of the knees so your forehead can drop down. We'll start to move into our melting heart pose or our anahata or puppy dog pose, lots of different names. I'm going to use my bolster or your pillow or whatever you're using, and you're going to turn it so it has a little bit more of that long ways side. Your hands are going to come underneath you, and I still have that strap on. You can take it off if we won't be using it anymore. Taking those hands in front of the bolster at first, and I'll give you two different options of two different ways you can take this. This one is going to be a little bit more supported. So you're going to take it right under the chest as your hands walk forward. My hips are staying right above my knees as I just stretch out my arms and drop my chest down onto that bolster. And you can drop the forehead down. You can relax the forearms. So just staying here for a breath or two, just warming up the body. There's no rush. And then if you wanted to take it a little bit deeper, instead of having that bolster under your chest, you could take it underneath your forearms. So that's going to make the pose a little bit more intense or a lot more intense. So don't feel like you need to use the bolster at all if you just want to walk your hands forward. But if you're comfortable taking the bolster onto your forearms, you can let your forehead kind of drop right past the bolster coming onto the ground. And feel free to situate the knees or get comfortable. Breathing into the belly. And sometimes when you're breathing in one of these intense poses, keep breathing into it. It's kind of like your body is like tensing up, building that fight or flight feeling of clenching and holding on to, but using your deep breath into your belly. I know it's hard, but just remind yourself that you're okay. You can soften into it. You don't have to hold everything up. You have that bolster and the floor to catch you. Just got another minute or so. You got it. And you've got just one more deep breath. And you can slowly just kind of slide off of that bolster, sinking back, letting your hands come down, maybe just stacking the palms, letting the forehead rest down. Might feel really nice to come up into your cat pose, rounding throughout the back. Let the weight of the head drop down as you release through the neck. Maybe kind of shimmy the hips from side to side, getting into the rib cage. And we'll make our way into our swan pose, our pigeon pose, walking the hands forward. That right knee will go up towards that right hand. And you'll take that right heel and it'll kind of angle towards that left hip crease as you slide that left foot back. And as always, you do have options, so you can take a block or a blanket and roll it up under that right outer hip, giving yourself a little bit more cushion there. You could also take one of your blocks and place it underneath the bolster, at the head of the bolster, so that you can come down into that reclined support. And take your time. You're like, how many times is this lady going to tell me to get comfortable and take my time? But I mean it. So you can come down when you're ready. And something I do love about Nancy's classes is how much she takes things in phases and doesn't rush you. So if you're used to that, then please, by all means, take your time as you come down. Letting those hands slide forward, just giving into that bolster. Trying not to crush my AirPod. Doing your best to soften throughout the belly. Soften throughout some of the places that you might not be aware of. Could be in the hands or maybe the back of the neck. And sometimes the things that we carry might not even be things that have happened. You might be carrying your expectation of the future, or you might be carrying something from the past. When we look at how we think throughout our day, a lot of times we have this timeline of the future and the past that we're constantly in, but those are just our memory and our imagination. Really, the only thing that is existing right now is right now. And really, there's nothing you have to carry in this moment. You just have to be here. You just have to breathe. You've got about 3 more breaths, not too long. One more big breath. And taking your time, we'll just slowly slide those hands under the shoulders as you press yourself up. And that left foot will, the toes will tuck as you heel toe that left knee forward. You'll point the right toes back and extend that right leg back. And if you wanted to maybe draw some good circles with that right leg, you could. You could also even take a wild thing, letting those left toes spin out as right leg extends back. Get that right hand forward, maybe cactusing that right arm. As you breathe out, right hand will lower down. We can just move to the next side. Walking the hands forward. Your left knee will pull up towards that left wrist. Hopefully the bolster doesn't have to change too much. Right foot will slide back. Maybe sitting up tall for a moment, just gauging how this side feels. When you're ready, slowly coming down. Making those little adjustments to help you get as comfortable as you can. Maybe letting the elbows kind of slide out or forward a bit so that you can drop an ear down. If you wanted to add that support under the hip, maybe you want to add it on this side, you're more than welcome to. If you have drifted off into thought, come back. to your breath. We've got 3 deep breaths left, not too bad. Last big breath here. And your hands will slide underneath you, slowly lifting yourself off of that bolster, maybe looking up or rolling the head. And you'll slowly start to tuck the right toes, heel toe that right foot forward. Left leg can extend back for a moment, whether you draw some circles with that left leg or you take that wild thing. If you take the wild thing, right toes will turn out to the right edge of your mat. Left big toe edge of the foot drops down as left hand reaches up and overhead. Maybe cactusing that left arm. Slowly dropping left hand and left knee down. And we're actually just going to come to a seat. Once you come to a seat, you're going to take the legs to the outside of the bolsters, not necessarily a wide-legged fold, but just so we can have that bolster either in between our legs or taking the bolster on top of them. Up to you. And you can use this bolster in a lot of different ways, whether for our caterpillar or our forward fold. You can take it just under your elbows. You could hold the block and just kind of drop the head into the block. You can really get creative. You could just have the bolster or pillow or couch cushion long ways and just drop the forehead into it. I am going to take my bolster resting on my belly, taking that block right underneath it, and either taking another block under my hands or on top of that bolster, you can fold forward. And this one takes me a little bit more time to get comfortable in, so you can kind of move those glute muscles out of the way as you fold. Might feel nice to take a minute or so to flex the toes in towards the shin to feel that stretch into the calf muscle. Maybe finding a little bit more depth to lean into, creating some of that space that maybe you were holding on to something. You have a little bit more space now to make room for what it is that you really want. Maybe what you want to be thinking instead of stressing or worrying all the time. I know my brain is constantly thinking about the worst thing that could happen, the worst outcomes, these crazy scenarios in my head. Just letting go of some of those things that we've been carrying for a really long time. We've got 3 more breaths. And as you inhale, slowly taking those hands right beside the thighs as you start to press yourself up one vertebrae at a time. Just taking a breath. And we'll start to take our bolster to the outside of our legs. You won't need that block anymore. You can start to come onto your back, bending your knees as you come down. And bolster is right beside me. With my knees bent, you can take a moment to massage the back, rocking the legs from side to side. And then I'll start to lift my hips up, coming into a bridge pose. I'm going to take that bolster underneath my hips. You have a few options with the legs. You can walk the feet out, let the knees come in. If you are still craving some of that butterfly pose, you could take butterfly. You could also straighten the legs out if it's comfortable in the lower back. And again, sometimes it does take a little bit of wiggling just to find that nice position in the lower back. should be right underneath your sacrum. But once you've found that sweet spot, just take a deep breath, breathing in through the nose, maybe out of the mouth. And letting go is a lot easier said than done, trust me. I know what it's like to have anxiety, and of course, we all have stress. But maybe we can just find a way instead of running away from that stress or letting it completely consume us all the time to learn how to just be with it instead of letting it go. Maybe just be with it. Maybe talk to it. I'm here. I'm here. I'm present. I'm listening. And maybe that means, in some way, letting go of control. Just being here, not having to fix anything or do anything. One more deep breath. Slowly starting to bend the knees. You can start to grab the bolster on the right side as your hips lift up nice and slow. Start to take your back down. Take a breath here. And we're coming into a twist using the bolster. So you have options. You can just let your knees drop over onto that bolster. It might be a little more comfortable if you wanted to take that bolster in between the thighs if you're going that route of stacking the knees. But if you're comfortable going for crossing the legs, the left leg can lift, cross over the top of that right thigh like you're sitting at a dinner table. I'm gonna pick my hips up just for a moment so I can get my right outer hip a little bit more down. And then I'm gonna take my right foot and kind of wrap it over that bolster. So I'm hooking my heel over the edge of it. And that way I can just really relax my legs here. Your arms can go out into a T. If you wanted to add the cervical spine, you can drop your left ear towards your left shoulder as you look to the left hand. Soften throughout the eyebrows. Let your fingers just curl. As you relax the back of your neck, breathe into the belly. Last deep breath. And you'll slowly take yourself onto the lower back and crossing the legs, both feet drop down. And we'll slowly just take the bolster to the other side. Taking that right leg, crossing it over the left, maybe picking your hips up just a hair so you can get that left outer hip more down. Taking that right heel, or excuse me, left heel, or no, yeah, left heel, crossing it over that bolster so that your heel kind of hooks over it. And you can let that bolster situate and slide however it needs to. Maybe opening the arms into a T. If you wanted to take that twist with the neck over to the other side, looking towards the right hand, you could. Letting go of distraction so that you can make room for intention. Thinking about those things that we carried for a long time, what do you now want that space to be taken up with? Instead of that guilt or shame or maybe anger or judgment, expectation, all these things that can feel kind of heavy sometimes. There's always a place for them, of course. What would you want to fill up with instead? Maybe something that feels a little bit lighter. Instead of being hard on yourself, maybe replace that with something a little bit lighter. I am enough. I am loved. I am human. All these things. Take another breath here. And we'll make our way to our final resting pose. You can actually just kind of hook both legs as you uncross the legs. Hook both legs behind the bolster and kind of drag it back behind these sit bones so we can take this supported Shavasana. So legs will straighten out, maybe give them a good little squeeze and stretch. And slowly drop the heels down as hands rest to your sides. And coming into this final resting pose, unless there's one last thing you'd like to take. Taking a deep breath, using that exhale to completely let go of the muscles, to just soften them into the mat, into the floor, into the earth. Giving yourself this time, this minute or so, to just let go of some of that heaviness that you might have been carrying. We had a long year behind us. And just for a moment, just being free of some of that weight that we've been carrying. The weight in our mind that's been holding us down. Breathe in, let the body feel light. Breathe out, let go of that heaviness. What have you been carrying? What can you let go of? Before you open your eyes, before you change anything, take a moment to breathe into the space that you have created. Breathe into the whole body. Wiggling the fingers and the toes. Maybe swaying the head. And reaching the arms up and overhead. Rolling to your left or your right side. And slowly making your way into a comfortable seat. You might even sit on that bolster. Bring both hands together, right in front of the heart. We'll end practice with a cleansing breath. Breathe in. Let it go. Thank you so much for sharing this practice with me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and start to move into this wonderful season of spring. Namaste.